This is my Prezi on PBIS, or Positive Behavioral Interventions and Supports. What is disruptive behavior? There's minor such as talking, being out of their seat, calling out a turn, tapping on a pencil excessively, or perhaps more serious such as throwing objects, cursing, fighting, destroying school property. This may result in loss in instructional time, lowered academic achievement for all students, decreased student engagement and motivation, as well as teacher stress, frustration, and attrition. Research shows that when a teacher does not have a behavior management plan in place, at-risk students are more likely to demonstrate poor academic achievement and to be referred for special education services. This is stated by Donovan and Cross in 2002. What is PBIS? It's a proactive system approach to help establish behavioral supports and social culture for all students in a school in order to achieve social, emotional, and academic success. It is also an evidence-based framework that emphasizes positive school atmosphere and prevents school discipline problems. Warning though, PBIS is not a curriculum, it is not a state standard, and it is not an intervention. However, it is a systems change framework that guides selection, integration, and implementation of the best evidence-based practices for improving behavior outcomes for all students, while increasing opportunities for academic engagement. Here are some examples of PBIS. For instance, one is state positively. An example would be walk in the hallway instead of do not run in the hallway. Use specific terms such as talk in a whisper when working with a partner, not maintain a reasonable vocal level when working with a peer. Or perhaps you want to make measurable and observable circumstances, such as be in your seat with supplies on your desk when the bell rings, instead of saying be ready when the bell rings. You may also want to try to ensure that the students convey expected behavior. Example, keep your hands to yourself. A bad example would be a good citizen. For school-wide expectations, the first step is respectful. In classroom and all settings, examples of this would be to raise your hand and wait to be called on before you speak, using kind words, asking first before borrowing supplies, listen politely when others are speaking, and offer help when someone is in need. Another school-wide expectation would be to be responsible. Classroom examples and all settings examples for this would be come prepared with supplies and materials, take care of supplies and materials and property, make an effort to do your best on all assignments, keep classrooms clean, listen to directions the first time, participate during lessons and activities, keep all electronic devices, cell phones, toys, and games at home. The last school-wide expectation might be to be safe. So classroom in all settings may have the following examples. Keep hands, feet, and objects to self. Walk safely and quietly. Push in chairs when away from your seat. Keep chairs flat on the floor when seated. Use school materials and furniture as told by the teacher. Keep roller skates, blades, and heelys at home. PBIS has a three-tiered framework. PBIS is accomplished in a tier-like system where attention is focused on creating and sustaining primary, school-wide, secondary, or classroom, and tertiary or individual systems of support that improve lifestyle results for all students. In primary prevention, this tier will focus on both classroom and school-wide strategies for all students in the school. The goal is to create a positive social culture in which positive behaviors are explicitly taught and reinforced. Adults must respond to problem behaviors in a consistent way. With regards to secondary prevention, these are additional interventions for all students with at-risk behaviors who need a little more than primary prevention. This will work for any group of students and is not intended only for students in special education. This could include small group or individual review of the rules. At this level, there are needs of the students who require more support than the primary tier, but less support than the personalized intervention. This personalized intervention is also the tertiary prevention, and at this level of integration is highly individualized and designed for students who engage in serious problem behaviors. It is likely that tertiary prevention might be needed for children with emotional and behavioral disorders, as well as students with no diagnostic label, but who still demonstrate serious problem behaviors. Each student receives supports that are specifically tailored for them. The wraparound. Wraparound is an approach often instituted within Tier 3 because the students who require this intensive level of support likely will receive services from multiple providers. There is team development, which get people ready and complete strengths. There's initial plan development, hold initial planning meeting, and develop a culture. There's plan implementation, which reviews plans with teams to modify, adapt, and adjust. And plan completion, define good enough and unwrap. PBIS versus responsive classroom approach. PBIS is a process that is consistent with the core principles of RTI. Both are grounded in differentiated instruction, use positive strategies, establish a positive environment, teach life skills, reinforce positive behavior, respond to inappropriate behavior. However, PBIS does not specify which reinforcing methods are preferable and lets the schools decide. Responsive classroom also does not offer a tertiary prevention, but does emphasize the use of reinforcing teacher language. PBIS versus responsive classroom approach. PBIS primary prevention would use a school or classroom-wide system for all students and settings, while responsive classroom practices maintain more of a morning meeting or rule creation, interactive modeling, role-playing, positive teacher language, logical consequences, classroom organization, or collaborative problem solving. With regards to PBIS secondary prevention, additional systems for students with at-risk behavior are in place. Responsive classroom practices, though, at this level, would involve additional modeling, additional role-playing, buddy teacher timeout, additional collaborative problem solving, individual written agreements. And lastly, at the tertiary level, only PBIS prevention is available, which is a highly individualized system for students at high risk. Video 1 displays PBIS good and bad examples, which can be found under this video in my Weebly website. Video 2 demonstrates new teacher survival guide for classroom management and will also be found as a link underneath this video in my Weebly website. High school PBIS. But what about high school students? Isn't this just for little kids? Thousands of high school students in the U.S. are implementing PBIS, but research is still ongoing because the time required to achieve adequate implementation and the involved attention to different variables make high school PBIS different. There are 3 primary contextual influences in high schools that need to be considered, which is size, culture, and developmental level. So far, the research demonstrates that they should focus key foundational systems, such as data, leadership, and communication. Video 3 displays high school PBIS in relation to brain development, which is a TED Talk and can be found in a link below this video in my Weebly website. And lastly, why is focusing on teaching positive behaviors important? Research has shown that implementation of punishment, especially used inconsistently and in the absence of other positive strategies, is ineffective. Teaching behavioral expectations and rewarding students for following them is much more positive approach than waiting for misbehavior to occur before responding.